Today, the topic is about the power electronics application to power system. This is a kind of overview of how the power electronic devices are utilized for the performance improvement of the power system. And more emphasis is given in this presentation onto the voltage source converters for the power system applications. At the same time, some applications related to thyristor based is also dealt in this webinar. So today we will see these are the table of contents. So first we will see why we need power electronic devices for power system applications. Then a special emphasis on the voltage source converters. Then we will see the different control methods. Give me a moment, I will take a pointer. So then we will see different control methods for voltage source converters. Then a case study. After this control method, we will also look at a case study. Then we will also see what are the semiconductor manufacturers who deal with these kind of products and what could be the career path, job roles and job opportunities if you have some exposure in this kind of environment. So these are the contents. These are the contents for today. So going into the topic, so the power system network today and future need to cater to growing electricity demand. So as per a recent International Energy Agency report in December 2020, it forecasts that India need, at least if we see overall growth that India, I will give a more emphasis to our country. So if you see the requirement for India, it is something like 25% growth. It is uh, forecasted by year 2030, and it is expected to grow even more because as you know, even the IC engines are getting converted into electric vehicles, which means that there will be going to be a huge demand for the electric power for passenger and commercial vehicles. So these are going to be like sudden or big increase in the demand for the electricity. So along with the demand, it is also required to handle the network congestion. So with the existing transmission network, it might be difficult to handle the entire transfer of electric power from the generation to load end. And then we get a minimum right of way. What is this right of way? Right of way is basically the land portion that is taken by our transmission infrastructure. So today we know whenever we go with the transmission infrastructure or laying of new lines, new transmission lines, then the first opposition comes in acquisition of the land. So it becomes very difficult for the government to go with new transmission networks. So that we call it as a right of way. So it also has to be minimum. Okay, you need to handle the network congestion, which means you need to expand your transmission network. But such expansion also has to be accommodated with a minimal rate of it. That's what I would like to mention here. And our focus is also going towards reducing the carbon emissions as per the Paris Climate Agreement. So all these things are making us to move towards different kind of generation, different kind of power generation. So conventionally, we had hydro and thermal, which is based on coal based and water based, but and then sometimes we have a pumped hydro as a storage capacity or to handle the peak power plant, peak loads. And later we had this wind generation and solar PV, which is also booming up. Wind is almost like we are almost third after China and US. Wind generation, India leads in the third position. And solar, now it is picking up in India. So we have many gigawatt range of power plants that is coming up. One is already there in Anandpur, which is around 680 megawatt, and other things are coming up in Lake Argil area, which is expected to be something like 7.5 gigawatt. So there is a lot of potential for the solar power also coming into the network. And then gas turbines and concentrated solar power plants. Of course, concentrated solar power plants, they have not been very much successful like wind and solar. But anyway, we have some plans also based on concentrated solar power plants. And futuristic could be something like hydrogen based. So hydrogen can be a fuel to operate operate the turbines to generate power. So futuristic can be something like a hydrogen and battery energy storage. So battery energy storage are also coming up in a big way. We will see how is the potential in the next slide. And vehicle to grid, maybe this is a new concept which is almost coming up in US, and it is especially in the distribution network. This is of course not related to the transmission network, but this is connected to the distribution network. This to emphasize more on this what is the concept on this vehicle to grid? It is like you have your car batteries available and you go to the office and then you park it for 8 hours and then you don't do anything. So during the period over the daytime, say for example, you have a peak period, then you may able to provide a little bit of power to the or whatever the energy that you store in the battery in your car can be transferred to the grid. And whenever there is a low profile on the load, then you can consume the power. So by that way, you also gain on your currencies. So that is what the vehicle to grid that is coming. This is also an upcoming area. So this bar diagram is again coming from an International Energy Agency of December 2020 report. So here we have some few sources how power is generated and what are the other areas how it could grow. So if you see India at present 2019 data, it is mostly coal, and US, China is also mostly the power generations are related to coal. And when we take the gas turbines, India and China, they are very less, whereas US and European Union, they have a lot of gas oil fields, so they have a lot of potential to generate power by that way. And Europe, it is very much sensitive to environment, so that's why you don't see much power generation based on coal, whereas gas turbines and oil are present, little bit of oil are present. And if you see low carbon power plants like solar PV and wind, you can see it leads most of the countries, though it is on a percentage of generation. So it might look like Europe has the most renewable generations, but it is on a percentage of European generation. So if you see on a gigawatt basis, then it is US, then comes China, and then comes India. But if it is on a percentage penetration levels, then it is European Union which leads among the other countries in the world. And then comes the China and then India. Then comes the transmission links. This transmission links is a topic that we will deal today. So what is this transmission links going to have a role in bringing up, making the power system more adaptable and more secure in future? That we will see today. Maybe I will not talk about this transmission links here. I will take it as a separate topic next. And then comes the batteries. So if you see batteries, even compared to European Union and the US, batteries in India are going to play a vital role in future. This is because it is not that we are going to pioneer that, because we already have a lot of blackouts. So which means that we already more adapted to the use of UPS at our homes. So which means that we are already familiar with this kind of technology, maybe at the kilowatt levels, but now we are going towards the megawatt levels. That is the difference. So that's why it is forcing that India could have more battery technology in future. And then comes the demand side response. Demand side response is nothing but, as I said, this vehicle to grid and then operating in the heavy loads like washing machines and water heaters, etc. during the off-peak period, so that you don't add more load to the peak periods. So this is how the distribution would look like in future from the present, especially for India. I would like to emphasize. So the cornerstone is that flexibility is very much essential for a good electricity power security of the power system network. So the network has to be very much flexible. So it is not like conventional in the past. So you have generation at one end and distribution loads at the other side, and you get whatever you get it. And if you don't get it, you just create a blackout. So that is not possible in future, because every department or every organization has more counting on its revenues. Even the consumer, as a consumer, we are also counting on the revenue. So everybody is more aware on that part, and then it becomes very much essential that power system has to be secure. At the same time, it has to be very much flexible also. So let us look at a little bit of technical and then go into the Powertronics applications. So let me assume that there is a two-bus network, which you are already familiar with if you have done your third or final year UG program. So this is a two-bus network. So for a simple two-bus transmission network with generators aggregated at one bus and loads aggregated at the other bus, which is connected through a long transmission line. The voltages at the generator is represented by its magnitude E and phase angle delta, and at the load it is represented by a voltage V with its phase angle 0. for as a reference with respect to the generator angle is derived with respect to the load angle. So then using the KVL equation, we can derive what is the real power and reactive power that is being sent from the generator to the load end. So we get a equation something like this. What is interesting is that we need to look at the PV curves. So this we call it as a PV curve. So when we study about the voltage stability, so this is a very important parameter that we need to look at. So this we call it as PV curve. So this is on x-axis we have the load real power, that is P, and on the y-axis we have the load voltage, that is at the bus 2. So this is the receiving end voltage, and we have different curves. Let us look at one of the curve. Say the load is at unity power factor, which means that the loads connected at bus 2 is operating at unity power factor. So when it operates at unity power factor, let us assume there is a change in load. So as the load keeps increasing, we can see that the voltage profile, which was supposed to be at 1 per unit, starts reducing. But at 1, it starts reducing. So if you see at one point of time, there is a single point. After that, the curve drops back, which means that this is the knee point beyond which the system becomes unstable. So this is the area of voltage instability, and above this is the area of voltage stable region. So which means that we need to operate the we need to maintain the receiving end voltage for the variation in real power flow in the region above the knee point. So this is for a unity power factor. Suppose we have loads, different kind of loads, because in practically most of the loads are inductive loads, and we don't have much of unity power factor loads. All motor loads are whatever we have it at homes or in industries. Most of them are motor loads, or even power electronics converters what we use for either UPS or for drive applications. They also require reactive power, which means that they are going to be a lagging power factor loads. So when we have lagging power factor loads, then we can see that the knee point moves even to the left, further left, which means that the loading capability at the receiving end reduces. On the other hand, if we have a leading power factor load, of course, these are all like a theory here. So, but we need to understand what it is. So when we have a leading power factor load, which means that we see that the knee point moves forward, which means that it allows for a more loading capability at the receiving end bus. So with this background of the theory, we will we will understand about the power electronic applications. So yeah, simple power electronic application is something shown here. So one is a shunt compensation. So these are based on thyristors. So we have a anti-parallel thyristors and then capacitors. So which we call it as a thyristor switched capacitor, and we have anti-parallel thyristors and then reactor. We call it as thyristor switched reactor. And we also have permanently connected filter. I will come to this what it is. So as I said earlier, if we want to add more loads, then we need to have a leading power factor. So what we can do, we can have a fixed filter banks. For example, we can connect a fixed capacitor here. But what happens, this load connected to this bus is not constant, which means it is going to vary. So when this varies, then the load profile also varies. Suppose if there is a sudden drop of the load, then there will be a over voltage created at this bus, and it will lead to multiple cascaded tripping due to over voltages at different ends of the loads. So to avoid this, it would be better if we have a kind of a part of fixed capacitor bank, and then we have something like a controlled capacitor bank. So that's where this TSC is coming into picture. So what this TSC what does TSC does? So it will have a voltage reference, and then based on the voltage reference, then it will measure the load voltage at bus 2, and then based on that it will give an input to this, and based on that it will generate a alpha angle. So here the alpha angle is not continuously controllable, because we have a capacitor voltage always available. So when we switch on the capacitor, when we turn on this thyristor, we need to turn on this thyristor so that we don't have any transient voltage coming across it. So we need to turn on at a time when this capacitor voltage and this bus voltage are more or less very close to each other. So during that period, we will turn on these thyristors, and then the TSC will come into picture. So this is a waveform that we can see. When we add a capacitor, we know that there will be a leading power factor. So which means that the current leads the voltage. So we can see here that the current I of t leads the voltage V of t by almost 90 degrees, assuming that it is a lossless capacitor. So we will have a perfect 90-degree leading in this case. So which means that it is going to improve the power factor of the receiving end bus too. And we also have a TSR. Why we have a TSR? So sometimes it may happen that we may not be, as I said in TSC, it is not a continuous control. It is a discrete control. So you can either switch on or switch off. So which means that you will have a control only for one half cycle, and the other half cycle you don't have anything. So same thing applies to the TSR also. So in TSR also you can see that when we have a TSR connected into the network with thyristors triggered on, so we see that the current lags the voltage by 90 degrees. And how this thyristor is operated? So thyristor is operated at every 90 degrees, and it is allowed to operate until up to 180 degrees. It can also be continuously operated between 90 degrees to 180 degrees. But when we do it between a range of 90 degrees to 180 degrees of alpha, then we will create lower order harmonics. So in those cases, then we need to have some filters to reduce this or to localize the harmonic generation within this MV bus, and it is not passed on to the high voltage bus. So these devices are based on thyristors, and we call it as flexible AC transmission system because we have a kind of control available to in order to provide a reactive power requirement for the AC bus. And the other type of compensation that comes based on VSC is a STATCOM. So here what we can do, here we will have a kind of capacitor, and with the help of a capacitor we will be able to supply the required voltage, either leading or lagging in respect to the high voltage bus, that is at bus 2, with the help of a controller. Similar to the previous case, in previous case we will have a control angle alpha. Here we will have a modulation index, so which will be compared with the carrier wave, and then we uh, fire the IGBTs or MOSFETs depending on the power level. But since I am talking at the power system level, then it will be definitely IGBTs. And the other way of improving the power flow is you use a TCSC. So you use a series capacitance as you see in this equation. So the X is in the denominator. So if I can reduce this reactance X of the transmission line, then I can have more power transmission. So which means that by adding capacitors in series, and then we also have an anti-parallel thyristor and then some inductor. This inductor is basically to limit the di by dt that might occur on the thyristors and could damage it. So that's the reason we have the inductors here. And depending on the number of capacitors that is being inserted, then we will have the amount of reactance that is being reduced. So this is how the TCSC comes into picture, and it establishes more transparent power flow. So this, since this is connected in series with the line, we call it as a series compensation. The other way, as I talked in the beginning of the presentation, the right of way. What is this right of way? So we need to reduce line loss, at the same time we need to reduce the right of way. So line loss we can reduce since because we have the reactance as well as resistance of the transmission line. In order to provide enough enough reactive power, the generator has to supply the reactive current also through the same transmission line, which means that it is going to increase the line losses. So you have a current which is required to supply the real power as well as the reactive power, which means that we are going to add the losses in the conductor. Suppose if we have, instead of AC system, if we have a DC system, then there is no concept of reactance, which means that you are going to supply only the line losses, that is resistance losses, I square R losses. So that way you will be able to reduce the line loss. And second thing is right of way requirement. So if we have a long transmission line in case of an AC system, for the same power you need to transfer between the two ends, you need a wider land transmission infrastructure, which means it takes a more of wider land. Whereas in case of HVDC, you don't require a wider land. You have very maybe 30% of the land is good enough to transmit the same amount of power with the help of HVDC. Maybe I can give a good example here. If somebody knows, there is an HVDC project between Northeast Agra to Bishwanath Chariali and Alipurduar. So this is a 3-terminal HVDC project based on LCC HVDC. So if you see the Bishwanath Chariali and Alipurduar is in Assam and Bishwanath Chariali is in Bihar. So between these two stations, the portion of the land is very, very less, which they call it as a chicken neck portion. So where we could not use the AC system to transfer the power. So there we have used the DC system to transfer the power. So that is where it is a very good example to tell about the right of way. So very restricted land requirement is very good enough to transfer the same amount of power. So we have two types of HVDC transmission system, as we have seen in the FACS device on the series and on the shunt compensation. So one is based on line commutated converter. So the line commutated converter uses the thyristors. So why it is line commutated? Because the commutation of the thyristor circuit is based on the AC voltage to which it is connected. And second one is the voltage source converter, so which is based on IGBT. Since I am talking about the at the level of power system, so we will have IGBTs. If it is at the drive level, then we can use MOSFETs for voltage source converter. Since I am talking at the level of power system in the gigawatt range, so IGBTs are predominantly used. So we have voltage source converter based HVDC, which is based on IGBTs. About this control, maybe I will a little bit in detail. So with the help of FACS and HVDC devices, we could improve the reactive power support and voltage regulation at the receiving end. And by this way, we will be able to increase the stability margin. If you see the equal area criterion for the AC system stability, that will be improved when we use FACS system. For example, if you see when we use a TCSC, then the X becomes reduced by the percentage of TCSC you introduce into the line. And I have also shown that by introducing HVDC, we will be able to reduce the line loss and rate of requirement. Now let us look at what is this voltage source converter. So voltage source converters are based on IGBTs. So there are different kinds of voltage source converters available, either 2-level, 3-level, 5-level, or multi-level converters. At the same time, we have diode clamp, flying capacitor based. So there are different topologies of voltage source converters. We are not going into the detail of it at present. So what does a voltage source converter do? So voltage source converter can generate an voltage of desired and adjustable amplitude, frequency, and phase angle. So why it is important? Why the amplitude is important? Why the frequency is important? And why the phase angle is important? So if you assume the voltage generated by the voltage source converter is UAC, and if this is connected to a grid through a transformer, through a step-up transformer, and the bus voltage is say UG or U simply as U. So if we have this UAC either greater than UG or less than UG, then it is possible to supply reactive power or absorb reactive power. So whenever we have this UAC greater than the grid voltage, then we will be able to supply the reactive power. So this again comes from the basic equations P and Q, what we discussed in the previous slide. So reactive power is based on the magnitude of voltages at both the ends, and real power is based on the phase angles between the two ends. So based on the amplitudes, then we will be able to adjust the reactive power exchange between the voltage source converter on the grid. And based on the phase angle, if you generate a voltage with a leading phase angle compared to a grid voltage, then we will be able to supply the real power. We will come to this, what is this bus? It should be a capacitor, or it should be energy storage device, or it should be something else. That will depend on the application. For example, if it is only a shunt compensation, then you are going to supply only the reactive power, and the real power is very minimal to just to only cater to the losses in the circuits. So in this case, there will be two controls. One will be to maintain the DC link voltage, and other one will be to maintain the AC voltage in relation to the grid voltage, whether you want to supply reactive power or you want to absorb the reactive power. And this VDC can be a battery, or it can be connected to a solar energy storage, or it could be a type 4 wind turbine generator where this can be a DC-link capacitor. So in those cases, we will have an energy coming from elsewhere, and then this energy is transferred onto the AC side with the help of phase angle of this voltage.